Have you ever worked incredibly hard to reach a savings goal that felt completely out of reach just a few months before, only to watch that money vanish almost as quickly as you accumulated it? You grind, you sacrifice, you say no to things you want, and then one day you finally cross that threshold, 5 figures in your bank account for the first time. It feels amazing. And then somehow, without any single dramatic spending decision, it's just gone. A car repair here, some furniture there, a trip you convinced yourself you deserved. And before you know it, you're staring at a balance that looks a lot like where you started, wondering what the point of any of it was. Or maybe you're in a different situation. Maybe you've got $10,000 sitting in your checking account right now, and you're genuinely unsure what you're supposed to do with it. Nobody ever taught you the rules for this moment, so it just sits there while you think it over, and the longer it sits there, the more invisible it becomes, blending into your regular money until it stops feeling special at all. Here's the truth that most people never hear at this stage. What you do in the days and weeks after you hit $10,000 in savings is one of the most consequential financial decisions you will ever make. Not because $10,000 is a life-changing amount of money on its own. It isn't, really, but because the habits and structures you either put in place or fail to put in place at this exact moment will shape your financial life for decades. Most people make the wrong call here, and they don't even realize they're making a call at all. They think they're just waiting to figure things out. In reality, they've already decided. Let's start by being completely honest about what $10,000 actually is and isn't. On one hand, it genuinely is a meaningful achievement. Studies and surveys have consistently shown that a shocking percentage of people in this country couldn't cover a $1,000 emergency without going into debt or borrowing money from someone. When you look at it that way, having $10,000 already puts you ahead of an enormous portion of the population. That's not nothing, and you shouldn't dismiss it. You worked for that. Be proud of it. But at the same time, $10,000 is not wealth. It is not financial security. It will not fund your retirement. In most cities, it won't come close to a down payment on a house. If you lost your job tomorrow, $10,000 might keep you afloat for a few months, but it wouldn't give you much breathing room. $10,000 is the beginning of something, not the thing itself. The mistake most people make is treating it like the destination when it's actually just the launch pad. And because they treat it like the destination, they never go any further. Think about what typically happens when someone hits this milestone for the first time. The money has been building up in their checking account because that's where they've been depositing it all along. They look at their balance and it feels incredible to see that number. But because it's sitting in the same account they use for groceries and gas and everything else, it doesn't really feel separate. It just feels like a lot of regular spending money. And so, without making any conscious decision to splurge, they start spending a little more freely than usual. They go out to eat more often. They buy the clothes they'd been putting off. They upgrade their phone, even though the old one still works perfectly fine. No single purchase feels irresponsible. Each one seems completely reasonable, given how much they have saved. But those slightly elevated spending habits don't stop after 1 week or 1 month. They continue, and slowly the balance starts drifting downward. $10,000 becomes $9,000, then $8,500, then $7,800. They notice the decline and tell themselves they'll be more disciplined next month and rebuild it. But they never quite do, because they've already adjusted to the new spending level, and dialing it back feels like deprivation, even though they were fine before. Then something actually goes wrong. A car repair, a medical bill, a broken appliance. And suddenly, a real emergency takes another $2,000 or $3,000 out of what was already a depleted balance. Now they're at $4,000, maybe $3,000, feeling completely defeated after all the work they put in to get to $10,000. This is not a story about bad luck or bad character. This is a pattern that plays out over and over again for one simple reason. The money was too easy to access, and there was no structure protecting it from ordinary human behavior. The people who actually build wealth, and they hit $10,000, do something that sounds almost embarrassingly simple, but makes an enormous psychological and practical difference. They split the money up immediately and assign each portion a specific job, not eventually. Not after they've had time to think about it. Right away, the same week they cross the threshold, before the excitement fades and before any of it gets spent on something that felt justified in the moment. Here's how the split works. The first thing you do is take somewhere between $3,000 and $5,000 and move it to a completely separate high-yield savings account. Not your regular checking account, not a savings account at the same bank that you can transfer from in 30 seconds, but a genuinely separate account. Ideally at a different institution, where moving the money back requires at least a day or two. This is your emergency fund, and its only job is to protect you when real emergencies happen. Real emergencies mean your car dies completely, you lose your job, or you face an unexpected medical situation. They do not mean you really want to go on vacation but can't quite afford it on your regular income. That distinction matters enormously, and having the money physically separated from your everyday spending account makes it much easier to respect that boundary. The psychological effect of this separation is far more powerful than most people expect. When you have $10,000 all sitting in one checking account, your brain perceives $10,000 as available to spend. It doesn't register it as protected or off-limits. It just looks like a lot of money that's there. But when you move $5,000 of that into a separate account and mentally designate it as emergency-only money, your brain recalibrates. Now your checking account has $5,000, and that's what your mind treats as your available balance. You make different decisions. You think more carefully before spending. You're not constantly dipping into a pool that was supposed to be protected because that pool now exists somewhere else, behind a small but meaningful amount of friction. A lot of people who do understand the importance of an emergency fund make the mistake of dumping their entire $10,000 into it and then feeling very financially responsible for doing so. And look, having $10,000 in an emergency fund is significantly better than having no emergency fund at all. But it's not the optimal move because money's sitting in a savings account earning 1 or 2% interest is barely keeping pace with inflation. You're protecting your money, which matters, but you're not growing it. You're not building anything. And that means years are going by while your savings stay roughly flat in real terms. This is why you only put $3,000 to $5,000 into the emergency fund at this stage. That's enough to handle most single emergencies without wiping you out entirely. But it's not so much that you're leaving all your money in a low-growth account indefinitely. The rest of that $10,000, somewhere between $5,000 and $7,000, depending on exactly where you land on the emergency fund, needs to go somewhere it can actually grow. That somewhere is a Roth IRA. Or, if you've already hit the annual contribution limit, a taxable brokerage account. And within whichever account you choose, the money goes into broad market index funds. Not individual stocks you picked based on something you read online. Not cryptocurrency because someone told you it was the opportunity of a lifetime. Boring. Simple. Diversified index funds that track the overall stock market and compound over time. The reason the Roth IRA is so valuable here is the tax treatment. A Roth IRA lets you contribute money you've already paid income tax on. And from that point forward, everything it earns grows completely tax-free. Every dividend, every capital gain, every dollar of growth over the next 20 or 30 years. None of it gets taxed when you eventually withdraw it in retirement. If you invest $5,000 today and it grows to $50,000 over the next several decades, you own nothing on that $45,000 gain. Compare that to a regular investment account where long-term capital gains taxes could take 15 or 20% of your growth, and the difference over a lifetime becomes genuinely staggering. The annual contribution limit changes periodically, but tends to be somewhere around $6,000 to $7,000 per year, which means when you hit $10,000 in savings, you can potentially max out your Roth IRA for the entire year and still have money left for your emergency fund. Now here's the part where the actual separation between people who build wealth and people who don't becomes most visible. What happens after you split up that initial $10,000? Because splitting it once is a good start, but it's not enough on its own. Saving $10,000 one time and then stopping doesn't change your financial trajectory in any meaningful way. What changes your trajectory is turning this split into an ongoing, automated system that keeps running whether you feel motivated or not. Once the accounts are set up and the initial funds are allocated, you automate everything. You set up a recurring transfer from your paycheck or checking account into your emergency fund, building it toward a full 3 to 6 months of living expenses over time. You set up another automatic transfer into your investment account, adding to your index funds every month without having to think about it or make a fresh decision each time. The specific amounts will depend on your income and what you can realistically afford. But the principle is what matters. You stop relying on willpower and motivation to keep the system going. And instead, you build a structure where the right things happen automatically. This matters because motivation is completely unreliable as a long-term strategy. Motivation is what gets you to $10,000 the first time. It's what gets you excited about investing and building wealth and imagining what your future could look like. But motivation is also what disappears the moment your friends are all going on a trip you can't really afford, or you see something you've been wanting for a long time. Or life just gets hard and stressful, and your financial goals stop feeling urgent. Motivation fluctuates. Systems don't. And the system is simple. Money arrives in your account. A portion automatically goes to savings. A portion automatically goes to investments. And you live on what remains. It's also worth addressing something that trips up almost everyone who reaches this milestone for the first time. The temptation to use $10,000 as a down payment on something big, whether that's a house, a nicer car, or the start of a business. None of these goals are inherently wrong. Buying a home can be a great decision. Starting a business can be a great decision. But using your entire first $10,000 as a down payment the moment you've saved it puts you back at zero with a new monthly payment and no financial cushion whatsoever. If anything goes wrong in the months after that purchase, you have nothing to fall back on. You're financially exposed in a way that creates enormous stress and makes even small setbacks potentially catastrophic. The people who handle major purchases well are the ones who kept building after hitting $10,000. They got to 20, then 30, then 50, and when they eventually bought the house or the car, they had a real down payment, healthy emergency fund that survived the purchase intact, and monthly payments they could comfortably afford. They bought from a position of strength. The difference between that experience and scrambling to qualify for a loan with your entire savings on the line is enormous. And it comes down entirely to patience. There's also a very common fear that stops people from investing even when they intellectually understand why it makes sense. The fear of putting money somewhere they can't easily access it. After working so hard to save $10,000, the idea of moving $5,000 into an investment account feels genuinely scary. What if there's an emergency? What if they need it? What if they regret it? This fear, while understandable, is one of the primary things that keeps people stuck accumulating cash that barely grows instead of building actual long-term wealth. The reality is that if your emergency fund is properly funded, you can handle most crises without touching your investments at all. And if you face a truly catastrophic situation that exceeds your emergency fund, investment accounts can be liquidated. There may be taxes or penalties depending on the account type and circumstances, but the money is not gone forever. The point of putting it there isn't to make it permanently inaccessible. The point is to make it just inconvenient enough to access that you don't spend it on impulse or let it slowly drain away through lifestyle. Understanding the difference between saving and investing is also something that clicks for a lot of people when they finally go through this process. Saving is what you do with your emergency fund. It's safe, accessible, stable, and not designed to grow dramatically. Investing is what you do with the rest. It fluctuates. It can go down in the short term, and it requires patience. But over long periods, it should outpace inflation significantly and build real wealth. Most people either treat these as the same thing or only do one. Building genuine financial security requires both, each serving a different purpose, each protecting a different aspect of your future. The $10,000 milestone is genuinely significant, but not because of what that amount of money can do for you right now. It's significant because of what it represents about your ability to save, and because of the foundation it gives you to build something much larger if you handle it correctly. Split it up. Put a meaningful portion into a protected emergency fund that lives somewhere separate from your everyday money. Invest the rest in a tax-advantaged account using simple, diversified index funds. Automate future contributions to both buckets so the system keeps running regardless of how you feel on any given month, and resist the urge to treat it as a windfall to be spent or a down payment to be rushed. 10 years from now, the decision you make right now, not the dramatic ones, not the big, obvious forks in the road, but this quiet, unglamorous choice about where to put your first $10,000 and whether to set up a system around it will look like one of the most important financial decisions you ever made. Or it won't look like anything at all, because you'll have spent it and saved it again and spent it again and still be wondering why getting ahead financially feels so impossibly hard. That difference comes down entirely to what you do next.